an empty shell without your love. I see you in the face of every child. This is my body, but you are always in my heart, always in my mind. If I could choose again, there'd be no choice for me but you. I do what I must do. I'd even give my life for you. This is my body. You cannot tell me what to do. It's not up to you. I will decide. This is my body, and I alone will choose. If this life within me lives or dies, this is my body. I'll do what I must do. This is my life. I will not sacrifice my life for you.
This is my body given up for you, that you might live eternally. This is my body, and thy will be done, not mine. Broken as the bread, crushed as the wine. This is my body. I do what I must do. I give my life a sacrifice of love for you. This is my body given up for you.
I have the right to choose. I have so much to lose. Don't tell me what to do.
This is my body, and thy will be done, not mine.
If I were choosing, there'd be no choice for me but you. I don't know you. I'll never hold you. You're always there, awake or in my dreams.
I give my life.
This is my life. I cannot sacrifice my life. I would do anything for you. I can see no other way. The choice is me or you.
Father, forgive them. They know not what they do.
How can I forgive myself for what I've done to you?
My wounds have set you free. Do this in remembrance of me. This is my body given up for you, that you might live eternally. This is my body, yet I will be done. Broken give my life a sacrifice. For you.
I give my life, I'll give my life a sacrifice.
A sacrifice of love for you.
Would you like some more coffee?
Sure.
Hope you enjoy the show.
Well, hello, this is Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. And of course, you say, Janet, you're not in the studio. Well, unfortunately, over the weekend, my brother John Watson came down with COVID-19. He's toughing it out at home. But I only saw him for a few minutes on Saturday before the diagnosis. And because of that, even though we were a little bit of a distance, the doctors recommended that I quarantine at home for a week and then get a COVID test at the end of the week. So hopefully I will not get it, God willing. This is about the fourth time I've had to quarantine for different reasons, and I've had at least 4 or 5 negative COVID tests. So we'll keep to pray that that's the case. So this week I'll be broadcasting from home just to keep my staff at Priests for Life safe and my whole studio crew. So, that's just how it is. I played the This Is My Body video for you. Now, that was a song that was written by the Irish singer Donna, and she wrote it after listening to a talk by Father Pavone. And of course, the concept is the phrase, this is my body. As you know, the people on the pro-abortion side, they call it health care. This is my body, But the true meaning of this is my body is what Jesus taught us. This is my body, so you might live. So, I give my body for you that you might have life. And that's what we're hoping, obviously, for women who are facing an unexpected pregnancy and all that. Well, joining me today, we're going to talk about how radical some of the people on the other side, that they're talking about reproductive health care for women and all that, but there are some groups on the other side that are getting very radical and very violent. So joining me right now in our program is Beth Vanderkooi, and she is the Executive Director of the Columbus Greater Right to Life. And she was actually in the cathedral of St. Joseph's Cathedral up in Columbus on January 22nd when they had their Respect Life Mass, and of course after that she'll tell us exactly what happened. So Beth, welcome to the program, and please tell us what was happening.
Yes, hello everyone. As Janet said, my name is Beth Vanderkooi. I'm the Executive Director of Greater Columbus Right to Life here in Central Ohio. And as many of you may have heard, on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade every year, we have an event. There's actually 2 events. The first is sponsored by the Diocese of Columbus. It's the Respect Life Mass. And then following the Mass, people process over to the Ohio State House, about a couple of blocks away. And we have an event that we call the Roe Remembrance. This year, I had actually just left the Mass. I wasn't here when it happened. Our bishop's homily went a little long, as the Respect Life Mass tends to do. And so I realized I needed to go set up down at the State House. So I exited through the side door of the cathedral. And within probably minutes of my leaving, what happened, and many of you may have seen this footage, but a group of self-proclaimed, what do they call themselves? Radical militant abortion activists stormed into the cathedral. They flung over a table. They rushed down the central and the side aisles of St. Joseph Cathedral. They got up on the altar and they were screaming, 2468, this church teaches hate. They were also screaming incredibly obscene and vulgar curse words and things like, we hate you. It was very profane. And so, after a couple of moments, the police, we always have special duty security. Unfortunately, you have to have a special duty police officer at church now. They had pushed past him. He had called for backup. Within just a few moments, the Columbus police came. They got them along with some of the men in the cathedral. It was really quite, as jarring as it was quite beautiful to see what happened, because as these women were coming up and trying to get on the altar and, getting up where the priests were, the Mass was celebrated by our Bishop Robert Brennan. It was also concelebrated by Bishop Malasek of the Diocese of Cleveland. And so some of the staff and the men who were there kind of stood in front of the altar, hand in hand, to hold them back, and without touching them, push them back from the altar, while many of the families and the students and the young people just knelt and prayed. So after a few moments, the Columbus police was able to get them out, got them outside. Unfortunately, they did not detain and arrest them.
But I have to stop right there.
Yeah.
They were trespassing into a cathedral, so they were trespassing.
Mhm.
And this is not about the First Amendment right. They were trespassing on private property. A liturgy was happening, and they smashed in there. I mean, I don't understand why the police did not take them and arrest some of them.
Well, the city of Columbus has recently adopted some police reform. And between that and also some policies that they adopted over the summer, it was the general policy of the police department that they're not currently making arrests for anything that is a misdemeanor or a nonviolent felony. So I will say, having heard from some police officers, this is not a group. This wasn't a one-time group. This wasn't. This is a group who is very regular. They harass not just us, other members. Really, the only thing that has changed is that this time they targeted Bishop Brennan and the Respect Life Mass.
Right. And so, so they got them outside the cathedral, but then they weren't done yet, were they? Didn't they proceed to try to disrupt your rally at the State House?
So it's actually not a rally. We do our event a little bit differently. And we actually obtained a permit and rented out the State House for what we call our Roe Remembrance. And it's a little bit different than a lot of events, but it really does serve as a memorial for the 19,000 babies that have died in Ohio, roughly 19,000 since last year. And so, it starts out, it's very prayerful. It's a little bit different than what you might see for the March for Life.
Right.
And it really does serve three purposes. The first is to remember those precious unborn children who have died from abortion. The second is to reach out to those who are hurting following an abortion.
Right.
So you often have, I think, in fact, we've had a Silent No More testimony. We'll often have a post-abortion, a woman or a man who's experienced an abortion. This year, we actually focused on abortion pill reversal.
Right. Very important.
70% of the abortions here in Central Ohio are happening with the abortion pill. So we wanted to really focus on that. And we've had a number of successful abortion pill reversals here in Central Ohio. So they came down. I saw the police cars as I was walking down to the courthouse. I saw the police cars. And so I immediately notified the event coordinator and the highway patrol. I said that I suspected I knew who it was. Usually, if we have protesters come to our events, I have kind of two general policies. If it's somebody who just wants to stand silently and respectfully and hold a sign, I let them. If it's someone who's disruptive, I ask them to leave. And that's true, by the way. Every once in a while, we'll get people who protest the way we do pro-life work. They want us to do it differently than how we are doing it. Or they're too Catholic, or whatever the case may be. And so I notified the troopers that I was fairly certain who it was, that it was a group that was known not just to me, but also to them. And that if that were the case, I wanted them removed. As is law, I wanted them removed to either a different part of the State House that was public or to the public sidewalks.
Did they remove them?
Well, they came. First, they tried to block our people from even being able to get onto the State House grounds. And we had the Highway Patrol disperse them. And then they started running through the crowd that was there, and I asked them to be removed. And they ultimately did not. So they said they were acting on some additional orders because that were put in place because of the protests both this summer and in the week prior. Many of you may have heard that there was a lot of concern about violent armed protests at the State House after what happened at the Capitol. So they had basically shut down the State House Monday through Wednesday. And we were keeping up with that all along. But yes, so because of everything that had happened, because of the cold weather, we had to substitute in a smaller sound system at the last moment. And it should have been no problem. It was our sound system. It's usually great for a crowd of 200 or 300. Unfortunately, what this group, and there were about 8 of them at the cathedral, it had grown to maybe 15 or 20 by the time they got down to the State House. I think perhaps because there were some people who just, maybe they weren't available yet, or maybe they just, they drew a line in the sand at storming into the cathedral. But they were there, and if you saw the video from the cathedral, I have to say that what they said and what they did at our event was far more vulgar, and they had their own sound systems, and they had sirens, and just, they were able to almost entirely drown us out. Luckily, our microphones were fed into our video stream, but even if you go and you go to our YouTube page and you watch the video stream, you can hear the obscenity and the vulgarity, not just toward us, but toward the police officers or the highway patrolmen who were there. And really, what this group has become known for doing, they have a lot of target toward pro-life activity, and they have a lot of target against the police. And they're constantly battling to try, they're trying to get that confrontation, that physical confrontation. And in this case, the police were not giving them that, and they were not, because of that, they didn't remove them from the facility. So
it's a shame. So but you were able to let some people speak, even though they were trying to drown them out, right?
Well, if you go to our video, you can hear most of the speeches. You just definitely have to listen very carefully.
What's your YouTube called? So for those who are viewing,
we're just under. So you can find us on all of our social media at GCRTL. So Greater Columbus Right to Life. That's our username on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
Right. All right. So if you, brothers and sisters, you want to check this out, please go to their YouTube channel. That's Greater Columbus Right to Life, GCRTL, and see what this group is doing. Well, also too, Beth, I'm going to have joining me now from our pastoral team at Priest for Life, Brian Kemper. Excuse me. He heads up our youth outreach. And last January, at the Silent No More awareness event, our gathering, which, by the way, brothers and sisters, we march with the women holding I regret my abortion signs, the men I regret lost fatherhood signs, siblings, I mourn my aborted sibling signs, and they march as part of the March for Life. When they get to the Supreme Court, we have a permit like you, we had a platform like you, we had a sound system like you, and normally the women start getting up there, and one by one, they give a 2-3 minute testimony about their abortion. Each person, and sometimes we have 50 or 60 people giving these quick little snippets of testimony while the marches are going by. Most of them will stand and listen to 1 or 2 testimonies, and then they go on. So it really serves as really bringing the damage abortion does to women, men, and families up front. So now I'm going to ask Brian Kempa, because this is the same group that stormed your cathedral that did this to us last January. So I want our audience to understand. They are all over. They follow pro-life events, and their plan is to shut you down, shut you up. I mean, this is terrible. So Brian, tell our viewers what happened last year to our group.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me. And Shannon, I have actually been to many of Beth's events for Greater Columbus Right to Life, and there have been a protester or two outside, but Beth has always allowed them to be there. She's never said, well, you can't protest. I mean, we both agree if they want to protest.
Brian, the same thing is Silent No More. Over the years, we've had protesters standing all the way off to one side in front of the Supreme Court, and we're here in the center. Okay, fine.
That's how I got involved with Silent No More the first time, is standing with your women. Well, there was protesters on one side, Silent No More on the other, and we kept it very peaceful. Well,
describe what they did this time. Now, can you picture this, brothers and sisters? Picture this. I'm the woman standing up. Some of these women, for the very first time, if they're going through healing and telling their families, they finally got the courage to share their testimony so that it would help others. So the woman is standing up there on the platform, and Brian, describe what happened.
Well, I walked up with my group from marching right at the end of the march. Everybody comes, and the last thing you see is the stage, and the women of Silent No More start their testimonies. We got there right before you were about to start, and we noticed that the Students for Life of America group was dancing, trying to drown out with music just the vile words that were coming out of these people's mouths. And so we came up, and I saw you and Father Frank, and I saw them attacking the stage. They were trying to rip the microphone down from the stage. They were trying to destroy that small stage.
And look, Brian, our producers put up a picture. There's Brian. Okay, what he's doing is he's up on the stage, okay, kind of trying to push himself between them and the woman from Silent No More, and you can see a little bit of Father Pavone's head there, and I'm up on the stage too. And they literally were screaming at the woman about to give her testimony. I mean, right, Brian? Vile, disgusting things.
Myself and our good friend Scott Thompson put ourselves in between this group of what they called themselves Team Abortion that day. They had foam fingers on, and they're screaming, and the one that's wearing the sunglasses and the hat, you can see behind me.
Right.
And I'm going to try to say this very carefully, basically reached down underneath and grabbed my private area and squeezed very hard, twice, trying to get you to move. Because they were trying to get to the women and not allow the women. And I think, Janet, what blows my mind the most is these are women trying to shut down another woman from giving her experience, her testimony of what she went through. And that, to me, was the most mind-blowing, is they're talking about being about women's rights and feminists, yet they're shutting women down.
That's right.
Janet, I think you and Georgette and I both noticed one of them, about probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes in, we could see a change in their face as they began to listen very intently to those testimonies.
Well, because that's what we did. You know, because Brian and you and Scott were there with a buffer, and we had a microphone system that was pretty good. I literally had the girl, the woman from Silent No More, eating the microphone so her voice could go out over the screaming. And those girls had no choice, those violent women, but to hear the stories. And we noticed that, you know, after a little while, took about a half hour of them carrying on, they left. They left. They just left. I don't think they could take it anymore, listening to story after story of damage, destruction, and damage and destruction.
And now, I believe,
will they change their mind? No.
One of them, Janet, and I think you saw this, Georgette notices,
right.
One of them was affected. definitely
Definitely.
affected by
And
those
I think
testimonies.
one of them might have had an abortion experience that wasn't so good. And by hearing those stories, they identified with the women. But Brian, tell us the name, some of the names these groups are known as. There's some names for them, right?
Well, I know the Abortion Access Fund is the main group, I believe, unless there's
Right.
another name, Beth. But I know that sometimes they call themselves Team Abortion. They have foam fingers.
Yeah, they have an organization, but to be honest, I don't like to speak it because what happens. Well, I don't like to speak it because I don't like to speak about, quite frankly, evil things, and they openly practice in the occult and some other things, but also.
Yes.
I always try to tell people, when we talk about this, what happens is everybody goes on their computer and they look them up and they consume what they're putting out there. And we shouldn't monetize their accounts. We shouldn't, place them higher in the social media algorithm. But they truly have two goals. Their first goal is to gain additional notoriety and to get more people watching them. And watching their live stream. And then their second goal truly is to just terrorize people and keep them unable and unwilling and afraid to come back to church, to come back to pray at the clinic, to come back to do whatever.
Right.
So they clearly, after what they experienced with you guys, they brought their own sound systems to our event. And so that's how they were able to do it. So what I am telling everybody is, you've heard what they've done. You can go on and you can see our video, but don't seek them out. Don't consume it. That's what they want.
Exactly. So basically, Beth, that's right. We don't want to seek them out. We don't want to look for them on Facebook. We don't want to find their things. But what I want people to understand is, as we're about to launch, as you know, in just a couple of weeks, another 40 Days for Life campaign, we have no guarantee that some of these groups are going to be out there, in front of the clinics trying to counter things,
I've been dealing with them for 6 years. They're out there.
They're out there.
They've attacked a priest before, didn't they? His arm in a car or something, Beth, and also a child.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many stories. At one point she was the ring. And by the way, these are not. Sometimes we have people in the pro-life movement that do their own thing, and we don't really embrace how they do it, right? There are people in the pro-life movement who have not always done things the way that should be done. And whenever that happens, all legitimate organizations are the first to say, this wasn't okay, this wasn't appropriate.
That's right.
This group, however, this is not some fringe group. The people who were storming the cathedral were regular volunteers and employees for groups like NARAL and Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. The lady who groped Brian is employed by the Ohio Abortion Access Fund. It goes by a different name, but she's employed by them. They do this constantly and all of the time. All of my volunteers have a story. We have stories about her coming up and, the students from one of our schools were out praying. The clinic wasn't even open, and the students were out praying, and she found out, and she came and was twerking on them, playing vulgar messaging, and asked a young man in middle school or early high school. She was asking him about his sexual experiences. I mean, they're. I will say, for those of you who have been to daily mass today or yesterday, the readings have really spoken to me. I'll just leave it at that. But I do know, we are working very closely. We have asked that charges be pressed for what happened to us. We're working through that. I do not speak for the bishop, but I understand that the diocese and the bishop's office are pursuing legal options. But I would just ask everybody to pray for those of us who are encountering them on a regular basis. Right. Pray for the bishop to do the right thing. And there's one more thing, by the way. So Ohio had, a lot of us have heard of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, right? This is Clergy for Abortion. On Friday, they released a letter that basically said, we lament a lot of things, but we do not lament that this group momentarily disrupted a mass. And basically what they said is that if you are pro-life, you expect this, you deserve it, and we want it to keep happening.
Terrible.
One of their chants, Beth, they were saying Roe is the floor.
Yeah.
And by saying that, I believe what they're saying is we're not stopping it. We're not stopping at Roe. We are going to make abortion legal on demand without apology, funded by everyone, 100%. Like, they are not even kidding. They want to escalate this so much.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, it's time. We have to stop our discussion. Okay, we're just about out of time. So I want to just thank you both for coming forward and telling the story. And the reason why we're highlighting this, brothers and sisters, I don't expect you, to try to do anything to stop it, because it may not even be happening in your town. But there is an abortion clinic, I guaranteed, someplace where you live, and maybe you're going to be coming out with the 40 Days for Life people to pray. So this is just an awareness that these groups are out there. They want to disrupt. They want to cause havoc. So there's two things. Number one, keep praying. Pray for their conversion too. But also, two, have your cell phone ready. And if any group or person is trying to do something malicious while you're out peacefully praying, start your video on your cell phone and have someone else call 911 so you can get some police backup. You have to be aware of what's happening so that you can protect your group and have pictures to prove what's happening. So Brian and Beth, thank you for raising the awareness on this. And we just have to know that we're on the right side. We're on the side of the Lord. So we're going to continue to do what we're doing in a peaceful, prayerful way. So thank you for joining me this afternoon to raise awareness. God bless.
God bless.
Okay, well, brothers and sisters, that's all for us for now with Just Ask Janet. Tune in again tomorrow, where guess what? I'm having Father Pavone come on, and we're going to tell you all about the March for Life. We march virtually, and a lot of other things of what's happening in the pro-life movement this week, so you won't want to miss that. So stay tuned. For now, this is Janet Morana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. God bless.